Everybody, so today I wanted to bring this video because I've had a few people ask for a bit more detail on how I did the LS swap. We've gone over, how much it cost me, and that's all based on the prices that I paid and prices I saw online. So if you haven't checked out that video, it's going to be in one of these corners over here. I think it's this corner. But today I'm going to go in a bit more detail, and because I've done each piece I have a video for broken down. So if you want to see those, I have a whole playlist broken down for all of this S10 stuff. So if you want to see anything just specific, go check that out. But I'm going to show it all. Basically, I'm not going to show any of the stuff, but I'm going to go over everything that I did and just ways to make it easier on you. Maybe you're trying to do it yourself. So first things first, take everything off the front. Take the hood off. Take the grill, take the bumper, take the core support, take everything out, because you're putting a V8 in there. It's not going to just slide in. Hell, it's hard to get in the V6 out with the core support and everything in there. It's almost impossible, actually, but it does come out. I actually was able to do that. But let's open this hood. So let's assume that you've already got the original motor out, because if you're working on one like mine, there's not a lot that you get. There's like maybe 3 sensors. So I think you should actually pull off all the wires and not just cut shit, because that's a cheap way of doing it. That's the easy way of doing it, just cut everything. And maybe somebody else needs it down the line. Like, honestly, the motor and transmission that came out of here with the computer and the wiring harness, if somebody wants it, it's free of charge. I just haven't put it on Facebook Marketplace yet. But let's get into what I actually did. So, all right, once you have it out and you're going to put this motor in, it's going to be a lot easier to mount the motor and transmission together and then put everything in here. That being, the reason why that is it's a really tight fit. You can put in the transmission if you don't have the motor yet, but you have the transmission. You can mount the transmission and then mount the motor in there, but expect a bit of a fight. Now, before you go and mount this motor in here though, you're gonna have a few oil pan options. So like me, I have the factory 5.3 oil pan from the truck, and it works great. All you have to do is notch the cross member down there, which I'll show you. So basically, you gotta notch the cross member, and it allows you to put it in there. Now, if you don't want to notch the cross member, you can actually buy the Hummer H3 has an oil pan that works really good. You don't have to notch for it, and they actually have an LS swap oil pan as well, and that one you don't have to notch either. So if you don't feel like notching or anything like that, that's the option to go. I honestly wish I would have gone that route, but I just didn't have the money at that time after spending it on other things. So I'll eventually go that route, because as you saw, my oil pan does hang down below the frame. So expect that if you decide to go with the 5.3 stock truck oil pan. Now one other thing is, you'll be obviously getting some headers like this. They have some cast iron ones that fit, but honestly, I just, these weren't that expensive. I paid $108 for the entire, for the pair, and they were brand new. Now they are cheap, so I mean, like, they have these stupid tri-bolt flanges down there, and it's sometimes those can be a pain in the butt to actually get to not leak. You will also need to get some of these angled spark plug, because the originals, because these things come in so tight, the stock ones will actually hit this and they'll actually start to melt. I mean, I ran them for a while. They worked for a little bit, but in the end, I just went ahead and got these. And as you see, all of this stuff fits. I didn't have to relocate my cool packs. There's nothing there. I can actually shut my hood, so I was able to reuse the factory truck intake manifold. But I also did recess my radiator. We'll get into that here in a minute, but there's a reason why. Okay, so we've gone over the headers. One other thing I want to show you on this side, because sometimes people have issues with this. I'm actually still running the factory, yeah, I'm still running the factory steering shaft. It was hitting, that's kind of one of the reasons also why I got the 135 degree spark plug wires, because they were hitting right here on this part of the steering shaft, and I was afraid it was just gonna pull the spark plug out or something, you know, nothing was gonna work out right. But that is the original one. Sometimes they say you can get the, like, if your steering shaft is not fitting, I believe it's some sort of 90s model Jeep Cherokee, so they actually bolt up the same from what I hear. Okay, so this is the original 5.3 power steering pump, and basically it has the same connections, and I just had to do a little bit of bending, some stuff here and there. I had to bend this bar down here. I had to do some bending, and once you go to put it in, you'll know what you got to do. I had to bend this hose too. I had to bend a few stuff to get it to actually just, you know, go back on there, but it has all the same connections. Okay, so for me, when I did the fuel system, the stock system has hard lines that run from the fuel tank back there, and they come up here, but they mate up with the fuel pump hard connections via like a line connection. They're not hard, they don't have like a compression, you know, like any kind of like screw-in connection there. So I ended up replacing those connections with fuel line injection hose, which is good up to 100 and something psi, but it literally only has like that much section between, you know, of hose, so I feel like it's gonna be good. And then basically I came all the way up here, and you can get these AN compression fittings right here off the internet, and so they're really easy to just attach onto your hard lines, and just, you know, it works great. It's a compression fitting, so it's nice and tight. You're able to then attach your AN fitting on this end and run your AN line up and around. I actually came up here to this cheap race filter. The problem with this one is that I'm not sure if it's because I installed it incorrectly or if it was just cheap, but the element inside actually fell apart. Well, what held it together fell apart. I did have it in backwards, so, you know, I didn't demand a refund or anything like that, but I ended up putting it back together with JB Weld, so it works great now. Then I run it, as you see, I run it up and around, another 90s, and this is actually a quick connect to keep with the quick connect going to the fuel line, and then that's stock fuel rail, stock fuel injectors. Let's see, when it came to the intake, so the reason why I ended up recessing the radiator up in here, the radiator actually stuck out basically about to right here, and it was hitting this, and it basically was pushing this up. As you can see, I have these marks right here, and that's actually still from up here. You see I've trimmed out this right here, but it still ends up hitting right here, and it was worse. I couldn't even shut the hood. This was the only part that was hitting, so like I might end up getting like some sort of like way to like a 45 come off right here, so it comes down a little bit and then come out. That way it just completely gets out of the way of the hood. But this does work. I actually paid $59 for this on eBay, and it works great. It comes with a stupid shield that goes around it, but I mean, you know, that doesn't do anything. So I ended up having to piece together the radiator hose, which I'll end up probably getting some sort of like full, you know, real actual radiator hose that's one solid piece coming all the way over here. But I ended up taking the stock 5.3 liter one, which was way too long to begin with, and just chopped it up, added, as you see, I got little connections right here where I put it together, and works fantastic. I don't have AC in here, so I did not have to do any notching of my frame over on this side for that. I mean, it doesn't matter, it's just a drag truck. I don't need AC for going down the drag strip. You gotta have it off anyways. So I'm running these stock 5.3 truck accessories set up the way they were in the truck, and I've not had any fitment issues. Well, I did have an issue right here where it was basically vibrating and touching the alternator. So that was one minor issue, but you know, some cutting took care of all that. No big deal. Let's see. Now, because I don't have AC and I don't have a heater core, I don't have any of that. As you see, I took it all out. You don't want to just cap them off. A lot of people will just, that's what they do, they'll just cap it off. But you may possibly experience some overheating issues, because they say that you want to have, because as you can see, the thermostat's right here and they're right here, and you want to have water passing over, and so you want to have the water going through and then coming back through this way. And so that's why I actually have this loop here to prevent that. Even though I don't have actual thermostat in there right now, I still, you know, I want to still have that there, because it's just either going to have pressure going to right there and not doing anything. So I mean, why not? It'll cool off some through the air. Not likely, but okay. So we've talked about all the engine stuff. When it comes to engine mounts, go ahead and get some good engine mounts. Don't cheap out on it. The factory urethane that you have there is going to eventually wear out, especially if it's the one that, like for me, I just got the ones that mounted to the engine and I kept the ones mounted to the frame. Go ahead and replace all that, because like mine, it has 600,000 miles on them. They may have been replaced at some point in that time, but even then, it still has a bunch of miles on it. So you want to go ahead and replace those as well. Right now, what I want to show you is when you're mounting up the transmission, because I used a 4L60, I went with the G-Force crossmember, which is the reason why I went with this, because it's nice and beefy. So let me show it to you. So as you can see, G-Force, and it's got the spot for, you know, running true duals and everything like that, but it's really strong, and it actually fits a lot of different transmissions, but it also stiffens up the frame. And I'm thinking I may end up drilling some holes over there to mount some more bolts right there, but I mean, it really works fantastic. Some people actually just modify their original cross members. That's a way to go about it. I didn't do that because I wanted something that was going to be strong, and that you saw it's fairly thick. Now it is like almost $300 for it, so it is pricey. They have cheaper ones. They have some that are just bars. You can basically, there's okay, so I swear it sounds like an elephant fucking, you hear that? I don't know what that is, but it sounds like an elephant fucking. I don't know what an elephant sounds like fucking. God, do you hear that? God, I hope y'all can hear that. It's so weird sounding. I've never heard anything like it. Okay, so this is, I'm sorry, yeah. This is 85, which is your ground right here. 85 is your ground. Then there's 86. So 86 is actually gonna run over here, and on my particular vehicle, so see that white wire right there on top? That's what I ended up tying mine into. That 86 tied into right there. So that's where you're gonna tie that into. So then 87, actually I tied 87 into, you saw the orange wires coming off. So one of those orange wires is headed to your brakes to power the lights for whenever you hit your brakes. And I tied, and there's two wires, so I tied one of those wires into this green wire right here, which is 87A. So then there was this, which is 87. This is the purple wire that actually comes from the PCM to let it know that you are applying the brakes, so that it knows to lock up the torque converter or unlock it, depending on whatever it needs to do. So that's what tells that what to do. Next, we're going to take a look at the starter relay. So you'll need this to activate the solenoid that's actually on the starter itself. So this white wire is actually this is 85 will be your ground, obviously, like it always is. And then in this particular solenoid, we'll be using, let's see, sorry, turn it. Yeah, had it right way. Okay, yeah. So we'll actually be using 30. So this is where you will need a 12-volt source. As you can see, I have a 10 amp fuse, and this wire actually runs to this wire, which this wire runs to the battery. And so I fused it right before I went into here, and so then you have 87, which, let me get this, yeah, so 87, which is this yellow wire. This one is actually running to the small nut that is on the solenoid on the starter. And then you have over here, you have 86, which actually runs over to, okay, so 87. Now that one is going to run all the way over here, and coming out of the ignition switch there is this wire right here, and that is the wire you're going to tie into. That is the wire that is going to tell it what to do whenever you're turning the ignition switch to start it. This is the starter wire. Sometimes they're purple. In my case, it is because this one wasn't manual. This one would have gone into the clutch switch, and then it would have come out of the clutch switch. It would have been a purple wire. So yours may be purple, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so you're not really going to have to do much with the ignition relay, because if you bought a standalone, it's going to come already pre-wired. There's not really going to be a whole lot you got to do except for add this to a power source, which is nothing. Actually, it should probably be fused, but honestly, it's powering all of this stuff that is fused, so I didn't see any reason to double fuse it, so I didn't. But like I said, you're really only gonna have to add power to it, so I just added a wire going to the battery to it, and it provides the voltage that it needs. But onto the fuel pump relay. The ground is already pre-wired into all the grounds for the whole wiring harness, just like the ground for the ignition relay. And then the green wire is for the computer to let it know when it needs to activate the pump and whatnot. And then you have your power wires. So this one, which is 30, is going to be your fused power, which is the 20 amp fuse from the battery. That's what you want to do. And then this one right here is the actual wire that is going to run to the fuel pump itself. That one is 87. So 87 is the wire that it's actually going to run. It's going to go all the way up and out and over to your fuel pump. Okay, so we got the fan relays right here. So if you're planning on doing a dual speed fan, there's you'll still need 2 relays, but it's wired up a little different, and this is not the way to do it. This is basically going to be for 2 fans, 2 stages of fans. So this is what we got. You're gonna have 2 fuse sources. One of them is a 3 amp, and one of them is going to be a 20 amp fuse. And so the 3 amp fuse is the 3 amp fused wire is going to go to 85, and then the 20 amp is actually going to go to 30. 86 is going to be your wire from the computer, and then 87 is actually going to be your power wire going to your fans. So, and that will be the same on both of your relays right here. Now if you plan on doing you know, like multi-speed fan, you know, whatever, then basically the hot wires that you have there, you would have it set up as dual stage or whatever, and then whenever it came time to activate the dual stage, the 87, the wires for 87 right there, one would go to one stage, one of the one speed, and the other one would go to the other speed. That's really the only difference in those. You're still going to need everything else that is there. Yeah, so basically once you get all that squared away, and now you're left with an S10 that has a 5.3 liter in there, and it sounds amazing. So much better than the freaking, I had a 2.8 liter in here beforehand, and God, it was so slow. But now it has a 5.3 in there, and it's only what, like 2,400 pounds. So it's gonna be a blast. It's gonna be a blast. So hopefully this video helped you complete your project, because that's really the ultimate goal, is for everybody to get their project done. And hey, if I can help one person, then I did good. So see you guys later. Bye.